Hi.
Hello. First off, we had a little discussion after the last segment where Vivian was asking me did I misspeak when I was referring to Jacques Ellul's book about propaganda and propaganda only have an effect upon the educated. Well, I meant, if I didn't say it, the literate. That is, propaganda only works when you have a literate audience. You can't really brainwash peasants who have no skills. So the tools of propaganda are only usable if your audience is minimally literate. That's what I meant to say if I didn't say it correctly. That doesn't mean that education is negative. It means the opposite, that the more educated you get, the better you'll be able to see through the tools, through the doublethink going on in most propagandistic worldviews. So that's a correction in case you got that impression too, as Vivian did, that I was saying education is bad. Ignorance is good.
I knew that's not what you would think.
But I learned that from Jacques Ellul's book, Propaganda, that, whoa, you wouldn't expect that it's going to be the middle class, that is, the normal people who are the most willing victims of propaganda, because they're followers most of the time, and that's what literacy is used for, whether it be overtly totalitarian propaganda.
Just enough education to be dangerous.
That's right. Little knowledge is, well, it's potentially fatal, isn't it? So Ray goes on talking about this article, Do Others Do Your Thinking, and he says, I agree wholeheartedly with all these points that the Watchtower, the Awake have made, right? From my own experience as a witness, I have little doubt that the majority of Jehovah's Witnesses are willing to bear the unpleasantness of disapproval or disdain they may receive from people on the outside because of holding to beliefs that are unpopular. I think, in general, they are sincere in this nonconformist role towards those on the outside, and they are confident that, though unpopular, this is the right thing to do, the course God is pleased with. That has been true in my own case as well.
There remains this question, however. Can persons be consistent if they uphold these sound, solid principles set forth in these articles when dealing with sources of information and influence outside their particular religious community, and yet abandon these same principles within its boundaries? What, too, of an organization that urges its members to apply diligently such principles towards outside sources of information, but discourages, disparages, yes, even denounces those who apply them with regard to the information it itself supplies?
Where this is the case, what reason is there for believing that the resistance to outside indoctrination, to mass persuasion, is necessarily and genuinely the product of deep convictions that come from thinking for oneself? What assurance is there that it is not the case of one indoctrination versus another indoctrination, that one's refusal to be swayed by unsavory labels and disapproval and peer pressure from the outside is not to some degree the result of being anxious to avoid unsavory labels and disapproval and peer pressure from within one's own religious community? More importantly, how meaningful is it if an organization urges people to reject subtle error, manipulation of facts, and half-truths from other people, if at the same time it disallows this approach to its own teachings? Furthermore, how honest and consistent is this when it also attempts to impose a rule of silence on any who would use their God-given mental powers to discern such error, even to the point of labeling any discussion of it as rebellious talk? How consistent is it to praise independent thinking with regard to outside information, but to condemn it as a sign of immodesty and a lack of humility when it comes to information supplied within an organization?
It would seem that Jesus' words about cleansing the inside of the cup so that the outside may also become clean is also his warning against becoming like whitewashed graves that externally present one appearance but internally have another. Gives serious reason for concern in this regard. A former witness in Brazil, who had served as a special pioneer, and who after many years began to ask questions about certain of the organization's teachings, expressed his own experience this way. And this is the quote. "I cannot deny that I have been and am still influenced by the noble principles aimed at outsiders, advocated in the organization's literature. I relied wholeheartedly on those principles and believed that any matter would be rightly considered by the organization. It is a painful blow to find out at the end that they are just part of a monologue, like other kinds of propaganda, that seek no answer at all, but only its own echo."
And it's painful today to realize this echo chamber phenomenon is everywhere in our culture.
Yeah,
People listening to only themselves
There's
and
no
their fellows.
ability to have a discussion.
Yeah. Applying the things said is the next subhead, and he starts with Matthew. "By your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned." Matthew 12:37 in the New International Version. Certainly consistency would call for all of Jehovah's Witnesses to apply within the organization the previously quoted published exhortations to do your own thinking. Do not let others do it for you. If you believe something, be sure you know why. And if you find the reason unconvincing, why adopt the viewpoint? Do not go along with an idea just because your associates accept it. Make sure that the views you adopt are truthful, soundly based, and supported by Scripture. Do not be pushed into acceptance by pressure from others, by fear of what others think, and fear of being labeled adversely, thereby demonstrating pathetic immaturity. Do not let the tyranny of authority either squelch objections or intimidate you from testing statements made by such authority. Do not fail to speak up on behalf of truth, nor seek excuses to compromise.
Ray continues, "Reasonably, this published exhortation is meant to be acted upon in a respectful, responsible, and Christian way. What would the result be if one of Jehovah's Witnesses today were to express his or her intention to do exactly what is stated above within the organization, doing so in just such a respectful, responsible, and Christian manner? Every man on the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I think virtually every elder in the more than 63,000 congregations earthwide, knows that this would almost certainly lead to that person's being viewed as dangerous, liable for disfellowshipment and ejection from the congregation. As has been amply documented, that is exactly what has happened and is happening to a growing number of persons who take those principles to heart."
Well, we're going to link on your screen a discussion Ray had in Crisis of Conscience about his experience with Rene Vasquez and the other dissidents at Watchtower headquarters, as they saw the Watchtower's incapacity to receive criticism or to do self-criticism. And that led to judging others. So they began to see that if you don't have that capacity for self-criticism, inevitably you're going to be slandering others to get yourself off the hook for not listening to outside opinions. So I'll put that link on your screen right now, and next time Ray gathers testimonies from all around the world that indicate, let's say on the issue of alternative service and war, that Jehovah's Witnesses generally are not skilled in their ability to think through issues either logically or scripturally. So what does that mean? That means Ray gathers that they are in effect conditioned to obey. And that's scary because it has, of course, the sniff or the smell of totalitarianism about it.
Yeah, they're not skilled to reason things on their own.
No, just to obey. Sheep ready to be shorn. Sheep without a shepherd. So in the next segment, Ray looks at the alternative service issue and the brother's ability to deal scripturally and logically with it. And we'll put that link on your screen right now to Ray Franz in Crisis of Conscience, looking at the Watchtower's incapacity for self-criticism and examination.